family than spending time with like-minded professionals. Stephanie is the best, bar none. And Carol makes me a better partner. She is the best as well and makes me a better partner every day. They challenge me to be the best me that I can be. And that's what KW really provides, I think, for all of us. Provides an environment for us to be and to become the best that we possibly can be. I was licensed in 1981, if anybody can remember back that far. I became a broker in I became a broker in 1990. I had moved to Baton Rouge in 83 to open a branch of my mother's brokerage from New Orleans, and went into the leasing and property management business, and have been doing that as a separate entity since 1983 in Baton Rouge. So in the mid 90s, I became real passionate about this organization when I joined the Association of Realtors and MLS. In 2003, served my first term as a member of the board of directors and absolutely fell in love with leadership and with what is set up for us on through NAR, National Association of Realtors, through Louisiana Realtors, and then of course through our local associations. Took professional standards very seriously and started serving on the Pro Standards Committee as well. I have now gravitated more toward the political action side of what it is that we do, because GBRAR, Greater Baton Rouge Association, Louisiana Realtors, and NAR all advocate for business ownership. Property ownership rights. And there's no better place, I feel, for me to serve than in that arena. I'm fascinated by it and I'm drawn to it. What Steph was just talking about a few minutes ago was you have the opportunity when you renew your dues statement to give to the political action side. There's a line item and you can actually write in how much you want to give. National charge is $40 a year. We have about 1.3 million members. What that means, of course, is that we have about $40 million to use, not only in national elections and on national issues, but more so on state and local issues. And so I would always encourage you to be involved and engaged in serving on committees at your local association. Get involved and go to the state meetings whenever the state meetings are held, and we get back beyond COVID and we're able to do it even through Zoom. Participate in the state meetings so that you know what's going on. And then if you're so disposed, go to your national meetings as well, because it gives you a broader view. Here's the one thing that I'll wrap up with. Keller Williams, even though we're very local and hyper local, and we have an opportunity to develop high quality relationships within our market center, you also have the opportunity to do the same thing through National Association with Keller Williams. Well, National Association of Realtors is the same way. We have opportunities to develop realtor relationships locally, but at the same time, we also have an opportunity and a privilege to develop relationships with those across the country. And so I'll wrap up with that. Be involved, get involved, be the change that you want to see made in not only our local politics, but state and national. And I'm always available if you'd like to call me and talk with me more about that. Oh, can't hear you, Steph.
Got it. I said, thanks, Jeffrey. Now, okay, so Carol K, KK, as we call her. So she's on the flip side of everything. I always think that we all have individual stories that lead us to where we're able to serve people in a way that someone else will never be able to serve them. And I know that whenever you're when you're lead genning and you're looking for business and you're talking with people and networking with people, there's just some people in the years that Carol and I have worked with one another. It's so funny because some people they're attached to her at the hip. She'll say, Steph, would you mind going and helping such and such? And I'm like, Carol, they still want you to go show them. I went and showed them, but they want you to she can't shake a stick to get them off of her. They love her. And I'll tell you this, when I was learning and when I was in the seats that you guys are in, and we now, thank goodness, we have all these videos that you can watch, and they're at your fingertips to where you can learn your buyer consultation and your listing presentation. It wasn't so snazzy back then. And so Carol would have story time. And we would go and she'd say, Stephanie, I have an appointment and I'd like for you to sit in on it. Yes, ma'am. And we would go and we would sit, and she would break out the presentation that all of you have access to in your toolkit. She had a presentation, she had it in a folder, and we'd sit down and she would say, now, thank you so much for coming in today. Your time is important. Have a little bit of pleasantries with them about how she knew them. And she'd say, so let's sit down and let's get to see what it is that you're looking for and how we can help you. And she would go through it. And the whole time I'm thinking, okay, this is a presentation, so I need to learn it. I need to memorize it. But I would get so wrapped into her stories. And so what Carol taught me eventually is that stories sell, facts tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a relational business. So keep that in mind. You have so much information coming at you right now. It's drinking water from a fire hydrant. And so don't try to memorize it verbatim, right? You're all unique individuals and you're able to serve people in a way that only you can serve them. Your experience from the past is going to lead you to help someone where they are in the situation that they're in right now. So if you're just relational with people and you're able to help solve that problem, there's a problem and you have to solve it, and you have a team of people that can help you do it, that's what matters. Not the scripts that are verbatim. And I think that's why Carol has such a loyal database of people, because she cares.
She does.
100%. She's come from the restaurant industry, so hospitality is her thing. She's fantastic at it. And she's had a business in Baton Rouge for years and years and years. And like Jeffrey was saying in the beginning, I mean, that's been so long ago, almost another lifetime ago, that chapter of her life ended, but she's still benefiting from it now. So go ahead, Carol.
Real estate now longer than we owned our restaurant. And
Wow, that's something, Carol.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And thank you, Stephanie. That's very sweet. And thank you too, Jeffrey. But when we had our restaurant, we had a coach that came in at one point and she said, MMFI, all your customers want from you, make me feel important. And so when I got into real estate, that transferred over. Because as Stephanie said, when you're visiting with them and you have story time, because they do remember a story, and that you're building that relationship with them. And what are you doing when you're talking to them like that? You're making them feel important. They are not just a transaction, they're a person. Just like we came back years ago from reunion, and on our log sheet for closings, we used to put the property address, right? Well, we put the property address, but now we put their name, because they're people. They're not just a house. And so I came to Keller Williams in 2002. Lord have mercy, 18 years ago. And that's amazing, huh? And then Jeffrey and I met, and I said, why don't you come to Keller Williams? And he was like, oh my goodness, no. Anyway, a year later, he came to Keller Williams. And then 3 years later, well, before then, we had an opportunity to co-op on some new construction. Katrina came, we were together. We said, you know what, we need to form a team. So we formed a team and we did it all wrong. Right? We said we need 6 buyer's agents. And but Stephanie was our lead buyer's agent and still is, and she's our superstar. And we're glad she took her coaching element away and went off and built other people's lives, and that now she's back on our team. so we can all work together again. So we close over 100 transactions a year. We've already met our 100. We met that in September. So we're very excited about that. Thank you, Julie. And so we're just moving on, and listing presentations, what you have at your fingertips, we didn't have. I remember Jeffrey and I sitting in an airport after we went to reunion in Austin, Texas, saying, okay, we need a listing presentation. And we sat there and designed right there in the airport what we were going to do. Our presentation is different. It's a little more customized than what Keller Williams presents to you. But yesterday, they just rolled out 3 more templates. So it's at your fingertips. Go in, customize it, make it fit for your area and your clientele. And that sets you apart significantly. We go on a listing presentation, and what do they say when we leave, Jeffrey?
Wow, I never knew this much about real estate.
Yes, yes. So you provide value, and this company helps you do that. So take advantage of it, because it's
And
been a
that's the
real
way
key
that
to our
we see our
success.
role. That's
Huh?
the way that we see our role. We see our role as to educate our clients on the real estate market and on what needs to be done. As we go through the information today, you'll see that we become counselors and coaches is what we do. So
So
Okay, so
now
on
you
that,
are ready to see, okay, this is all nice and sweet and fun, but where's the meat?
that's right.
right.
So on the heels of that, thank you, Carol. What I will tell you is that listings are skill-based, right? And if you keep in mind, I know that you all have seen it from the classes that you've been in, and hopefully you all have a copy of the red book, the MREA. And on the in the MREA, you have your triangle. If you just remember your triangle, that's going to help you with where you are in your business. So the foundation for your business, the very bottom, are leads, correct? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Once you have leads, then it goes up to the side. Does it say buyers?
Nope.
No. Okay, it's listings. And then on the other side is what? It's leverage, okay? So that's your foundation for your business. Leads, listings, leverage. Leads, listings, leverage, okay? So where are you right now in your business as a new agent? You're at the base, right? You need leads. Without leads, you have nothing else. Nothing else matters. Your website doesn't matter. Your Facebook social media page doesn't matter. You just need leads. And in the grand scheme of things, those other avenues are not a necessity. Without leads, then you have no buyer agreement, you have no listing agreement. Those are your employment contracts. Those 2 things are your employment contracts. So if you don't have today a buyer agreement or a listing agreement, are you employed? No. So today you are unemployed, and you are not going to be employed by anyone who is going to give you a fee for your service until you get one of those 2 things signed. So every day it's leads. Julie asked a question, and we're going to hop into right here in your book. It's the NAR 2019 profile on buyers and sellers. And Jeffrey, being as involved as he is at that level, that money that you pay in with your dues allows them to do this type of research so that you can present this information to your sellers. And they can understand, where does the business come from? You're going to put a sign in the yard. Where's the business coming from? Why can't I put a sign in my yard and get business if it's from these sources, right? So this is where your business is going to come from. And if you notice, 39% of the agents were referred by a friend, neighbor, or relative. That's your sphere of influence. So even when you are calling, and I hear a lot of agents who are starting out in the business, well, there's no one. You say, start with your phone. If you scroll down to the very bottom of your contacts, what is that number? Okay, great. You just started your database with 500 people. That's your database. Start in your phone. No one in my phone wants to buy a house right now. It does not matter because it's not them, it's who they know. Okay. They may want to buy a house in a few years from now, but I promise you, they know someone. Okay. So it's referral. Go ahead.
When you have that conversation, remember when I first got into the business and I'm talking to friends of mine and sending out, notifications and hand notes and things. And I remember one of my buddies, and I saw him at the neighborhood pool, and he said, I get your stuff, but I don't want to sell my house. I said, I don't want you to sell your house either. I just want you to call me if you know anybody who does want to sell their house.
Mm-hmm.
You have to educate your sphere that is what you want. You're not trying to get them necessarily to give you business. You want to be that 39% referral.
That's exactly right. Okay. And then the next chunk of people is going to be that 27% who used an agent previously. And that number is 27% because guess what? We don't have
Stay in
systems
touch.
place. They didn't stay in touch. So you get to go in and be the agent that has a system in place because you do have access to Command, which has smart plans, and you're able to launch them on a smart plan, and you're able to stay in touch, and the computer does the thinking for you. So
that number is the number that aggravates Gary Keller more than anything. Because he's like, people, you already did business with them. Why aren't they coming back to you?
Yep.
You probably didn't do anything wrong. You just vanished.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt? There's people trying to get into the Zoom.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Welcome.
Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can find them on here. Whoops. Okay, got it. Thank you so much. Y'all keep me on track. Okay. All right. So, so you've got the people who their agent did not contact them. Okay. And then look at that small little section there. It says 3%. That's what Carol and I and Jeffrey, we like to call them the internets. It's like a black hole. It's what everybody wants to gravitate towards because we're humans. And as humans, if you haven't heard it with any of the KW teachings, you're gonna hear it. There's something called pain and there's something called pleasure. Do any of us like to run into the middle of a war? No.
No.
We're gonna protect ourselves. So you want to protect yourself from whatever your fear is, because to you, you're associating that with pain. We have a fear of rejection. So you don't want to make a phone call because how embarrassing if they tell me no, or they think I'm crazy. I'm not doing that, right? So we're going to get on that. We're going to play with that 3% for like 9 months instead of paying attention to the other big pieces of the pie. Okay. So what do sellers want, right? We're all individually equipped to handle people differently based on the experiences that we've had and what we bring to the table. And the largest piece of that is that they want help with the seller to help seller market home. Okay. Help sell a home in a specific time frame, help price a home competitively, and help fix up the home, help find a buyer. So helping find a buyers, which is basically what's going to get the house sold, isn't as big as you think it would be, right? So Julie asked a question earlier, and Jeffrey and Carol, just with your experience at a local level and then at a national level, what would you say is our biggest challenge right now? I know Gary Keller has invested as much as he's invested into Keller Williams with technology, because Gary says that we are in the fourth industrial revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's technology.
Right.
Everyone is vying for your information. And so I'm going to let them speak on that. And yet keep in mind, when and I'm sure some of you may have interviewed with other brokerages before, there's different models. Keller Williams is big on teaching you how to be a business owner. So when you come to KW, it's like, I don't even know where to start. Oh my gosh, I have to customize my listing packet. I don't just have a listing packet that I can go and do. Yes, because you are a business owner. People do not buy because, brand recognition has some to do with it, but it's just like your hairdresser. You go to your hairdresser because it's your hairdresser. You don't go to your hairdresser because of the salon name that they're with, right? So Keller Williams encourages that. And with that, they encourage you how to run a business and how to get business for yourself. So we're not going to fish out leads to you, because that's also going back to that technology. So y'all speak to that if you don't mind.
Real quick, I want to say that when I first went on my interview at Keller Williams, I was at another company, and that was on a Friday, and I attended a class on the 33 touch, met with the team leader. On Sunday, I cleaned out my desk at the other company while I had phone duty. Ugh. A waste of an afternoon, and was there on Monday morning because I saw in that one meeting that this company was going to teach me how to build a business, and it did. And while you may feel overwhelmed right now, what I did after I came to KW is I said, okay, this week I'm going to focus on my listing presentation. Next week, I'm going to focus on my buyer presentation. The next week, I'm going to focus on my lead gen, my
36
contact,
touch,
my
right?
36 touch, how I'm going to get in touch with my people. By breaking it down into small bites, you can do it. So focus, put it on your calendar, and that this is all you're going to focus on this week. And that can be during your 9 to 11, because it's building your business. It's building your pipeline. So don't think it's got to be done after that. It's just as important because you're fresher in the morning anyway. And biggest challenge, Jeffrey, what do you think?
I was just making some notes here about what those challenges are. I think, and someone asked just a few minutes ago, and I responded. They asked what is NAR involved in, and I would say right now, what NAR is the most involved in is the code of ethics, showing ourselves as professionals to the United States, or to the world, really, because people tend to not think of real estate agents and brokers as professionals, and we need to see ourselves that way before the public will ever see us that way. We need to see ourselves as business owners. So when Carol says, what's the biggest challenge? I would say the way that we think first, because the way that we think paints the picture of how we project ourselves, and how we project ourselves to the public changes how the public sees us. So if the public sees us as a professional, if you speak about accountant, doctor, attorney, well, maybe not attorney, but as professionals in the industry, if we carry ourselves that way and we treat our business that way, then what we do is we create value, or we help the public understand what our value is. I would say that is probably one of the largest challenges that we in the industry have, because there are forces outside of the industry that would tell the general public, oh, it's easy to contact a website that shall remain nameless, that starts with a Z, and place your house there, and poof, it's going to be sold. I mean, just like magic, it's going to be sold, and you're going to get great money for it, and you just appear at closing, and everybody's going to be happy, and it's going to be unicorns and rainbows. Well, our favorite conversation on the team, or our favorite phrase on the team now, is after we accomplish something that requires human interchange and some measure of acumen, we kind of look into space and say, there's Zillow, do that. And I think that that's probably the one biggest mental thing, because what's the bold law? What you focus on does what? Expands. So when you think professionally, then what ends up happening is that expands within yourself, and it expands to those that are around you. So we need to see the blessing that we have in us being business owners, independent business owners, the free enterprise system, and being order givers and not necessarily order takers. And I don't mean that in a militaristic way, putting your finger in somebody's face and say, here, you need to do this. But Carol Kay is the one best person I've ever met at spending somebody else's money. And when we go in to do a consultation, though, that's the reason that we're there, because at its lowest common denominator, we are marketers. If we're taking listings, then what that means is that we are marketers at our core, because everything that we're doing, every bit of advice that we give about furniture placement or staging, about paint colors, depersonalization, curing any deferred maintenance, all of those things play toward one thing: how that camera is going to catch the image so that when that image is placed before the general public, it attracts and doesn't repel.
Because where's your first showing?
Go ahead, KK.
Where's your first showing?
First showing is always online.
That's right. That's right. So if you don't look good online, nobody's going to click a button and go see it. They're going to move right on to the next one. And that applies to agents as well as to the public.
Right.
So when you look at this graphic here about what's important to a seller, you've got to address every one of those. And helping to find a buyer may be one of the smallest ones, but the way you're doing that is through your internet presentation.
Right.
And then you've got to fix it up. You got to price it competitively. They want to sell it in a good time frame, and you want to market it. That's all what we do. That's all our value proposition right there.
What the one thing that I'd like to share right now that Stephanie hit on earlier, and that Carol has alluded to as well, is that the internet, and with the internet leads also being that less than 3%, what ends up happening is the public perception many times is that the internet is the producer. That's wrong. The internet is a tool to help production. We are the ones that actually become the producers in a number of different ways. And we'll talk about that as we go along. But what I want to help you understand is that if you're not sitting at that kitchen table, engaging one-on-one, developing the relationship that you have, and giving the advice that you learn through all of the time that we spend together today and all of the other courses that you take as a part of KW, if you're not there doing it, who is? The computer and the internet's not going to walk in that front door and sit down at somebody's kitchen table and give them counsel and advice. And I've never seen a computer develop a relationship with anybody. So it's important to understand that we are the catalysts. We are the ones that are important to all of this. So when Carol goes through the line and says, help sell or market the home, help sell the home, help price the home competitively, and help fix up the home, that doesn't just happen magically. That's why it's important for us as professionals to hone our skills and to understand that this is our value proposition. Steph?
And
Thank you.
one other thing real quick to piggyback on Jeffrey's comment about professionalism. I think part of the professionalism aspect comes with as we're going to get into the pre-listing package, the listing presentation itself. You don't just walk in there with a CMA and be done. That's not how it works. It's how it used to work, but it's not the way it is today. And it's on your appearance. It's on your professional appearance. You don't go in shorts and flip-flops to a listing appointment. This is the biggest investment most of these people will ever have in their lives. And if they're going to make $1,000 or $150,000 or more, it's still critical to them. And by the way you look and the way you present yourself, you're giving them, you're presenting value from within because you look like a professional. You don't go to your doctor's office and he comes out with dirty hair and hasn't washed his hands and has on flip-flops, right?
Right.
So that's my little pet peeve. Look like you want, what's your mama's line, Jeffrey? Dress for what you expect.
Yeah. Say that again, Carol.
Dress for what you expect.
So
Thank
what it is, again, is it's a professional attitude, it's a professional mindset, it's a professional heart set, because if you see what it is that you're doing as valuable, then that's what you're going to project. And that's what's going to create the world around you. What'll end up happening is those that are not professional will end up not associating with you because of the fact that the two don't jive. Yes, Carol.
And he has on his name tag. Don't be a secret agent. Wear your name tag.
Always
Wear your name
wait.
tag. Put on your pearls. Okay,
All right, so let me ask, what I'd like for everyone to do right now is, if you could put in the chat box, now that we're moving into listings and setting seller appointments, what is your biggest question about it? What is your biggest fear? What do you feel like is your biggest obstacle? So if you could type that in, I want to make sure that we're not just thumbing through the pages of a book, that we're able to put some of your questions at ease by giving you answers to that and coach around that for you. So if you could put that in there and participate with how we can help you and add value to you with that, then we'll address those questions. But if you look on the next page, there's a process to listings, okay? So if someone calls you, or if you're making your phone calls, if you've reached out, so give you an example, right? We're in 2020, so it's not all about the telephone anymore. Facebook is big for me, and each social media platform is designed differently to fit different demographics, right? So LinkedIn is going to operate a little bit different than Facebook. Like I said, I have a 15-year-old son. Facebook, he says, is for old people. So I've been categorized as the old group. Okay. So know your demographic, right? You're a business person. You're in business for yourself. Who's your demographic? Who are you catering to? For me, the majority of my friends, they're going to be people that are in similar life situations as me. The challenge that they're running into right now is they've been quarantined at home with kids, and they've been online learning forever and ever. And their 3-bedroom house that they have just squeezed in because we're saving every penny that we can for college, it's like time to get out. So we're moving up. The next set of people that I have in my database are my parents' friends that I've grown up with my whole life. And they are retired, and they are not into having a huge house with a huge amount of upkeep. They want to go to the beach. They want to have fun. They want to lock and leave. But guess what? Quality is important. They do not want to go into just a rinky-dink condo. So it may be a higher price point, but a smaller property. So whenever you know who your database is, you're able to effectively communicate with them. So for me, it's either the telephone, text, or Facebook. I'm very purposeful on Facebook about birthdays. If I see, I look at the beginning of the month, and I look at who's having a birthday for the month of November. And I'll reach out to them by messaging them and saying, if it's one of my girlfriends, it's your birthday month, right? We don't celebrate birthday days. It's the whole month. So it's your birthday month. It's coming up. I said, and I tell them, I want to be more purposeful about the relationships that I have in my life. I admire that about my parents. That's a different generation, and they have the tightest knit relationships because they're not topical. It's kind of lost its touch now with the way that my son communicates with his friends because it's all behind a computer. I mean, look at how we're doing now. I would much rather be in person with everybody because you're able to build relationships that way. So I message them and I tell them, I want to send you a card in the mail. I don't want to send you an obligatory happy birthday on Facebook. I'm going to do it, but it's going to get lost with the other 200. I just want to drop you a line in the mail. What's your address? They go in my database. Okay. That's how I'm building it. So yesterday, I just so happened, Jeffrey and Carol, they have a beautiful listing that we put on the market, and I went to tour it. I mean, I'm a little snobby when it comes to drapes. You can ask Carol. I mean, I always act like, are they going to take the drapes out of the house? Because if they're leaving them, I'll take them. I'm a drape.
I'll buy.
That's right. And so yesterday I thought, oh my gosh, the cabinetry in this house. I am now like noticing cabinetry everywhere because it is beautiful. They had a secret pantry and it was just an overlay, and it made it to look like a pantry that you could open, but you actually push the door and the pantry was in it. So I put it on my Facebook. I put the gorgeous tile that was in the laundry room, not even like the bathroom. This is the laundry room, but it was beautiful. And I put the lighting in there. So I put that on there, and I've got everybody commenting about it. And one of my friends commented, and she said, you find me a house with cabinetry like that, and you can put a sign in my yard any day. Okay. So from that comment, I sidebarred and I asked her, sister, we got to get your house on the market first before we could do that. When can I swing by and take a look? She goes, my house is ready to sell anytime. Okay. Have you ever heard agents come into the office, or have you ever looked on the MLS, and in Carol's defense, they've taken a picture with their cell phone and they're in the mirror, or the toilet seat's left up, right? Okay, that would be the same thing as me going to my friend's house who said, my house is always ready. And I'm like grappling at, I just need some business. I'm not employed right now. I got to get some sort of agreement signed by the end of the week. Let's go, sister. Your house is going on the market tomorrow. I got my cell phone. I'm going to take pictures. You sign in the yard tomorrow. No, there's a process to it. You can do it that way, but are you doing any service to your client? No, you're setting your client up and you for those tough conversations of, I think we overpriced it, or I don't know why we don't have any showings here. I don't know, right? So there's a process to it. And if you look at it, there's a pre-listing questionnaire. Then you schedule the listing appointment. Then you send out what's called not even your listing presentation, there is a listing packet. Carol's got it right there. Questions that you ask to where you're not going in blind. How many times do people say, I just need you to give me a value on my house? I don't know. I mean, do you have quartz or do you have ceramic tile? What's going on? And that's what our folder looks like too. So it is a literal presentation that you're bringing to them. That's our booklet that we have bound. You could do the same thing with the one that you print off from Command. You can get it bound, spiral bound, however you want to do it. Then you create your listing presentation. Now, where it says create listing presentation, remember this acronym, SYSTEM. Save yourself time, energy, money. You certain things you want to customize, other things you want to keep pretty generic. That way, every time you have a listing appointment, you're not having to go in and say, oh, this is not created especially for Julie. I got to remove that wording and I got to take the picture of her house out of it. Because then that's not saving yourself time, energy, and money. Okay. So keep it generic. Okay. And then you do the home walkthrough / listing appointment. So there is a process. So as excited as you may get when somebody says, my house is ready to go today, is like, awesome, cool. Let me ask you a couple of questions real quick. Because what you may not know is you might be super good, because y'all are all super good, right? That's why you got in real estate. You might be super good and you might put that sign in the yard and all of a sudden it sells like one of our listings did before it even hit the market. Can the seller move? Or is the seller going to say, like, I can't? I mean, I thought it was going to sit on the market for at least 30 days. I can't go for another 60. Maybe could have talked about that in the beginning. So turn it over to Jeffrey and Carol. Let's do your pre-listing goals. So this is your listing goals for in the very beginning. You want to state your value. Okay. You want to do your pre-selling, right? Build seller rapport and answer questions. Okay. And then the third thing is save time. Answer any objections up front before the appointment. Will all parties be present at this appointment? Sometimes we may have a little divorce situation going on, and someone might be trying to do something without the other one knowing, right? So will all decision makers be at the appointment? Okay. So let me run through this real quick. Jeffrey, Carol, what do you guys want to say about the pre-listing packet? And I'm going to look at the questions and we're going to address those.
Well, I think the pre-listing packet is tremendous because
Tremendously important.
yes, and many times we go on that listing appointment and we'll go through the listing presentation. Oh yeah, I read that in your packet. Oh yeah, I read that. Gene Rivers says if they haven't read it, he leaves. Gene Rivers is a super agent from Tallahassee. But we don't do that. We don't do that. But pre-listing it does just that. It's a pre-listing and it sets the stage for you, makes your job much, much easier. We do the packet that we deliver or mail to them. And we also do an 8x8. That's pretty much the same information that goes out to them. Because if they don't want to sit down and read, they'll read the email. And by doing that, how many other agents are dropping off a pre-listing package? We just had $1 million listing appointment last week, Stephanie. And there's another agent that they're interviewing, and she is stalling them because she has to measure the house before she can meet with them. Well, we have delivered this to the husband and the wife because unfortunately it's a divorce. We have already sat down and gone through our listing presentation with them. So who's going to look more professional? The one who says, oh, I need you to get everything out so I can measure before I can meet with you. So by doing that, Stephanie, a lot of those questions are about having confidence.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Years ago, when Keller Williams first came out, the listing presentation, it was a flip chart in paper, like a Mary Kay flip chart, and I hated it. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not a Mary Kay girl. You know, but eventually they convinced us. And so we did that. What that flip chart does is it gives you confidence. It gives you an agenda that you follow and you go through it and it walks you along completely so you don't forget anything, so you look professional. And all of a sudden, because you know it, you created it, you designed it, you've looked at it, you've read it, your appointment's going to be a breeze. The only part that's going to change in that appointment is the condition and the price. Everything else is already in your presentation.
So to go back on some of the questions that you all popped in here with confidence, I saw confidence and time management being your big things. And I'll speak to the lady who has a 2-year-old and a dual career. Whenever, and I can speak to that from experience. The reason that I got into real estate was because, as I mentioned, I was in property management and I had just had a baby. And to be honest with you, I was so tired. I mean, I would wake up every 2.5 hours, feed the baby, put the baby down. I would be exhausted. And then all of a sudden, ring, ring, neighbors upstairs are being a little loud. I can't sleep. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Ring, ring, smoke detector went out. Smoke detector batteries always go out in the middle of the night, never the daytime. I mean, it was time and time and time again. And I thought, I'm out. I've got to get out. I'm done. Not doing this. And you know, I'm a big believer that the good Lord above gives you opportunities. He opens doors and closes doors. And it just so happened that the property management company that I was working for, this was now pre-Katrina. It was a few months before Katrina, bought some land with every intention to build new apartments. Phase 2. We were building phase 2. Katrina hit, and all of a sudden, everybody needs a house, right? And people saw the opportunity and they seized it. So we scratched. No more apartments. We're going to build condominiums. And so they contacted me and they said, we know that you're familiar with the property. we would like for you to come on and work for us as an employee and manage our HOA. HOA isn't going to get formed until the neighborhood's about 70% sold out. So really not that much on the front end. Just when people come through, basically be an on-site salesperson is what I had to do. I had a salary, I had benefits. I said, perfect. No more 2 a.m. calls. Solved the problem with that. I went and I worked for them. Well, the developer was not from Louisiana, so he had to learn all the issues to go through the zoning and planning. And yeah, so we'd get a building up, I'd sell it, and then I'd wait 6 months for the next building to come up. I was bored out of my mind. People came in, I need to sell my house before I can buy a house. That's what made me go get my real estate license. Okay. And then that's whenever I went to Jeffrey and Carol and said, I'm taking Ignite because I want to learn, and I'm doing the work in the evenings or while I'm bored at work. And all of a sudden I'm getting business and I can't handle it because I can't leave my full-time job. That's just And so I partnered up with someone who could help me. So wouldn't you rather get something than nothing? We get so hung up on splits. And I'm not going to make any, you won't make money. If you're not able to be able to service people, then yeah, it's going to go to someone who can. So partner up with somebody in your office who can run during the day for you. And then you maintain that relationship still with the person. You're still involved. It's going to give you an opportunity to learn from someone who is full-time in your office that you trust. And that helps a lot of times too. But it is, and I tell people all the time, you are like an airplane right now, and you're on the runway and you're sitting and you've got your engine turned on, right? When does an airplane use the most amount of gas? During takeoff. So when you're going to just sit on that runway and you're going to creep on the tarmac, creep, and you're going to keep doing it, and you're going to keep doing it, and you're going to work as hard as you have ever worked in your whole entire life, probably for the first 3 months. And some people give up before that time because they say, I haven't made a penny and this is hard and I'm out. But when you take off, you're up, and it's momentum. Jeffrey tells me all the time. I used to tell Carol, I was on vacation. She says, once that momentum goes, you better ride it, because when it goes back down, you're going to need it for air, but don't stop it in the middle. Keep going. So it's going to be hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So you either partner with somebody and that can help you, or you've got to be so on point with your schedule. The other thing is confidence. And that's why I'm so excited about this, the pre-listing, because if you have to look at yourself, like Jeffrey said, sometimes those attorneys, right? You have to be able to handle the objection before it becomes an objection. So if you answer the questions up front, ask the questions up front, then when you go to the house, you've either answered them already or you're prepared to answer them. And it's simple questions. It's, tell me a little bit about your house. Blah, 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 blah. And then you go do your research in the MLS and you get all the scoop on it. Why are you selling? That gives you an indicator of their motivation. How long have you owned the house? That gives you an indication of, do they have enough equity? Or is this going to be like, am I going to have to start, will you do it for 2% because I've only been here for 3 years? Right? Who's on the mortgage? Do you have a second mortgage? This is what Jeffrey and Carol do so well that I love, and I've never, ever, ever thought about this. How much do you think your house is worth in today's market? Because it gives you an idea of how far apart you are.
Jeffrey, what does that do for us, Jeffrey?
I'm sorry, say again.
What does that do for us when we ask that question?
Oh, that's probably the golden question of any consultation that you do. Is, let me just take a step back before we explore that. And I'd like you to write this down. He who asks the questions controls the conversation, right? So if you're always in discovery mode, that's the best place to be. Because remember what Stephanie said earlier, stories sell. stories sell and facts tell. So you're there, sure, to share facts with them, but you're also there to find out where their head's at. So when you ask questions, you prompt them to tell you a story. So what they're doing is they are helping you understand where they are, number one. So he who asks the questions controls the conversation. Because if you have specific data that you need, we've got a client right now, sit down, talk to him. He talked for an hour and never tell you a thing. Never tell you a thing. How do you control that? You ask questions. So that's the foundation. So moving beyond asking the questions then is asking the right questions. Because you can ask questions that don't have anything to do ultimately with what it is that you need to know. And what you need to know more than anything is, where is that seller's head at? Where are they coming from? On our $1 million listing, they told us that they bought the property and spent how long, Stephanie? 2 years?
3.
Great.
Preparing the foundation. Well, all I can do in my head is see the dollar signs adding up. If they spent 3 years getting the foundation right, Lord have mercy. Because they were on a slope. They wanted to make sure that when they built the house, that the house didn't move.
All down.
So what Carol and I and Steph were doing was we were thinking, wow, that must have cost a lot of money. So I asked the question. The next question was, well, how much money do you think that you have totally invested in the house? And when he told us what that number was, all of us were pleasantly surprised because we thought that they were in it for a whole lot more.
So, okay, we can sell this.
Exactly. Because all of a sudden we figured out where they were as far as their investment into the property. Number one. Number two, the next question was, in light of today's market, what do you think that the value of the house is? Now, does that push somebody too hard? No. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody thinks about it. For anybody to sit there, I mean, Carol and I, probably out of the hundreds of listing consultations that we've done, I don't know that we've ever really had more than 1 out of 100 look at us and say, I have no idea. That's why I have you here.
Yeah.
Most people have an idea of what their house is, because when they get ready to sell, what do they need to determine? They need to determine how much equity they have in order to be able to do the next deal, right? So they have an idea. What you don't know is what that idea is. Now, when Stephanie held up that qualification form, there is a question on there. What do you think your house is worth in today's market? Now, once they tell you what the house is worth, you've already done your research. There is one golden follow-up question. Because many times the seller will come at us with a number that is too high for the market. Wow, imagine that. And a seller overpricing their property. If that happens, the one best question that you can ask that seller is, well, Mr. Seller, Mr. Miss Seller, how much would you pay for your house in today's market? How much would you pay for it right now? What did I just do? Flip the script.
Mm-hmm.
Flip the role from them being a seller to them being a what?
Buyer.
A buyer. Because what we are tasked with doing is we are tasked with helping a seller, and you're going to want to write this down. Our job is to help a seller think like a what? A buyer, not like a seller.
We tell them that from this moment forward, you will be looking at your house through the eyes of a buyer. But the beauty of this questionnaire, this lead interview, it's going to give you confidence when you go in there on that listing appointment. If you already know that they think the house is worth $350, does that help you when you go through the numbers?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're not being blindsided. I can remember years ago, before I was trained like this, that I would go on a listing appointment, and going over the CMA was the most nerve-wracking part of the entire time. Because, oh gosh, what if I don't tell them what they want to hear? I was more worried about how it was going to impact them because I didn't ask the question. Because by not asking the question, I didn't control the conversation. Had I asked that 3
That's
days
good, Carol
before I
Kay.
went on the appointment, yeah, then all of a sudden I know by following this checklist, they think it's worth 350 and I think it's 3.25 all day long. So my numbers are going to have to support that. And I'm going to be prepared and have my objection handler in place instead of getting blindsided at the kitchen table.
Mhm.
So that's the beauty of asking questions of your clients and staying in curiosity. Staying in curiosity. Remember, that's one of the tenets with respect to KW. Communication, what? Seek
Speak first.
first to understand. Stay in curiosity, stay out of judgment. Stay in curiosity, stay out of judgment. Because you need to know how these folks are thinking. Because many times Carol and I go into a listing appointment, Stephanie goes into a listing appointment, and what we learn is that there's not only a primary mortgage on the house, but there's a what? A secondary mortgage. Or they've refinanced the house and pulled their equity out of it already to use it elsewhere. Or they pulled the equity out to build a pool, or they pulled equity out to send a child to college. So it's important for you to know all of that stuff, because that's going to color in their mind what the value of the house is. And many times it's not so much what the value of the house is. Many times it's what they want. It's what they need in order to do their next deal. And what they need and what they want has nothing to do with the value of the house in today's marketplace.
What you want, what you need, what your neighbor says does not work.
Right. So
So do you guys understand understand that it's not necessarily just somebody wants to sell, I need to go do a listing presentation. You're jumping the gun whenever you do it that way. Whenever you're looking at the whole ball of wax here, the reason why when you get into real estate, you typically are able to get your first paycheck off of a buyer, right? If you get an A buyer from an open house, then you're able to get, hey, you're going to have a check in 30 to 45 days, unless they're a cash buyer, and you can do it even sooner than that. Where you have to kind of look at your time management is that you can get in that rat race, because for every buyer that you work, you could have worked 2 listings. Buyers are more time intense, but you're not spending money up front. With listings, it's a little bit, it's going to be longer legwork on the front end. Yet when you're on that back end, when you've done all your homework, then you're sitting back and you're letting the buyer's agents do the work, and it's going to cost you on the front end. And that's whenever you get into your commission scripts, because when you go to list a house, if you're going to do it the right way, and you're going to be able to present it on the internet for the first showing, you're in $1,000 before you've even made any money on that listing. So you better know what their motivation is, because do you want to eat that money if they decide this isn't going to work? We were just testing the market. You've lost money. So kind of temper yourself with, am I working too many buyers to where I'm not able to have enough time to go and get the listings, because buyers are going to take a little bit more time until you're able to structure it to where you're able to really hone in and funnel people and wrap it up super quick. If you don't have those skills yet, it's going to take a heck of a lot longer on the buyer side than it would on the seller side. So keep that in mind whenever you're making your seller appointments. Most of the time with Carol and Jeffrey, when we talk about a pipeline, and when you've learned in Spark and now Elementals that you classify it by A, B, and C, right? Same thing on the seller side, it's with A, B, and C. So know their motivation and be able to categorize them in those buckets so that you know who you're going to be attending to first and then who can maybe wait a little bit. Because when you go on that listing appointment, very rarely will Jeffrey and Carol put a house on the market in a week. It takes, I mean, I'm sitting here asking Jeffrey, he has one that's going to be coming on the market and I've got a buyer right now. And I said, when will it be ready? Probably the end of December. I'm like, oh no, we got to hurry that up. He was, no, it's not going to work. So, like, it's just not right. So it's not, hey, I'm going to meet with this seller. We're going to get it on the market next week. How long does it take you guys?
Up to 6 weeks,
Yeah.
8 weeks sometimes, between consultation and inspection. Pre-listing inspection is huge. And then the assessment of that inspection on what actually needs to be done before they go to market. Now let us say, as important as the pre-listing package is, once you get into the consultation and you start to talk, Mr. and Miss Seller, the one best thing that I can encourage you to do that will build value into your house and prevent any erosion of value is to have the house pre-inspected before we ever go to market. So we can talk about that more as we get into the inspection or into the listing consultation itself. But again, that's one of your value propositions, is bringing that insistence to what it is that you're doing.
So
Because most deals fall apart. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Most deals fall apart, not on the negotiation, but fall apart because of inspection items that were unexpected.
So with your pre-listing packet, just to wrap that up and let's move into the listing part of it. Your pre-listing packet is in your agent toolbox, okay? You're gonna customize it to you. And keep in mind, anytime you see in any of these presentations where there's numbers, testimonials, those types of things, your office is a team, okay? You use those numbers to your advantage. You can go in your MLS, you can pull in your MLS your office. And if you're doing the listing side, then you could pull year to date from your office sold listings. And you can run a CMA on that to get the average list price versus sold price. You could use your office numbers for that. Testimonials aren't necessarily, Carol Poche did a fantastic job. She sold my house overnight. That's not always the case, right? Character speaks higher a lot of times. So ask your past coworkers, hey, can you just kind of give me a testimonial, like to how I'm a hard worker, my work ethic. That's all you need to do, Julie has spent years in the financial industry. Her work ethic is above no one else, and she can negotiate like I've never seen before. That's going to be a huge impression to a seller, rather than, I haven't sold any houses, so I really don't know what to do. And you know what? If somebody asks you that how awesome is it that you guys get to say, actually, I work with a huge team at my office. I'm a part of a fantastic office. For those of you who are in Baton Rouge, we've got #1 market share. What does that mean to the seller? We have more buyers and sellers within our office and agents working with them than any other office in the greater Baton Rouge area. So I'm a part of a huge team, and I'm going to be able to utilize all the agents in my office at my disposal whenever that may be, because we work within a win-win, because you have the Y4C2Ts in your packet. And then if they ask you, like, yeah, but I've never seen any of your signs around town. Well, Mr. Seller, lucky for you. Because guess what? You're the only one that I have. So that means all of my time is getting put into your list. You're not chasing around 40 others. You spin that sucker. You spin it. Okay. So you do. And sometimes Jeffrey and Carol will look at something like, Lord, this agent's been calling me all day long. Oh, well, they only got one thing. Hey, good for them. They're servicing their clients. So use it to your advantage. So in your packet, you're going to have the pre-listing packet. Go ahead, Carol.
going to answer one more question real quick up
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Somebody asked about being asked a question they don't know the answer.
Mhm.
Very easy. Mr. Miss Seller, you know I don't know that answer, but I will get back to you because I'm on a team at my office and I know I can get that answer for you this afternoon. Simple. Go ahead.
And they'll have a ton of respect for you too, rather than just fuddling
Yeah.
through.
Exactly.
And hey, hats off to you for having a follow-up conversation, because that's
Mhm.
going to make you call them after.
Mhm.
So there you go. So you're going to have your packet with the pre-listing on one side, and then on the other side, what the homework that Jeffrey and Carol spoke of, you want to give them homework because homework equates to buy-in. How bought in are they to this process? So you can have in there a property disclosure, right? If you're going to list a house, if it's 2 months from now, if it's next week, you want to have that property disclosure regardless. So go ahead and put the property disclosure in there. And then you could do a sheet that says my favorite amenities. Remember, you're making them flip to being a buyer. So what would make a buyer buy your house, Mr. Seller? Tell me what you love about it. And it's their favorite features that they're going to write about. So that's just a little bit of homework for the sake of having buy-in. You really don't need to, but you just want to see how bought in they are to it. And then since most of you are single agents, guess what? You are so committed to your business, you're going to drop it off on their front porch, not your courier, because you don't have any money to go do that right now. So just
But you know
drop
what?
it off on their front porch and wave at the doorbell.
And what's the advantage of doing that? You see whether the grass has been cut in the last 6 months. If the paint's peeling on the outside, if they're a broken down car in the driveway. I
Like
mean,
the
you're
neighbor's
going,
house look like.
exactly. So that gives you a pre-listing view for when
There
you
you
go
go.
back and do your homework.
So now you call the seller and you say, I will be at your house as we scheduled at 4:00 tomorrow. I'm excited about just kind of going over the information that I found here and getting your goal of moving into your next house accomplished. Okay, Jeffrey, Carol. So you get there, you ring the doorbell, they open the door, and what happens?
Right. First, on your way there, get off your phone. Get your mind clear. You are going on an appointment. You're going into surgery, is what you're doing. You don't want to walk, your surgeon's not going to walk into surgery on the phone ordering dinner or fighting with his wife, right? So get your mind clear before you walk in that door. And your mindset is, I'm going to take this listing. Not nervous, not scared. You may be nervous, that's okay. But your mindset is, I'm going to take this listing. And because you've done the homework, you've done a pre-listing packet, you've driven by the house, you've done your marketing research, you did the questionnaire. Now you've got a presentation that you're going to walk through, that's going to walk you through it, and you're not going to leave anything out. So you're going to ring the doorbell. What's the line in bold? Mr. Miss Seller, it's 5:00 and we have an appointment. Right?
Right.
Then what do you
You
want
want
to
to
do
show them
first?
that you're on time.
That's exactly right, because you are a
Realtor professional.
professional. Exactly. So,
The
so
door
step-
and then say, oh, I'm so glad you came, and you're standing in the foyer. What do you have to do? You take control of the conversation and do what, Carol?
Mr. Miss Seller, may I put my things on the dining table and then you take us on a tour of the home? Right?
Mhm.
Is that the question you wanted?
That's right.
Yeah, that's the answer I wanted. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, here's what we need to do.
Right, right. This is
Because
the
if
next
people don't know
step.
what to do, they're not going to do anything. They'll just stand there with you.
And then you walk through the house and you let them talk. And you don't point out every problem you see. If you see, baseboard that needs painting, or if you see a little crack or whatever, don't bring it up then. Don't bring it up then. You're going to bring it up later. Because right now you're still building rapport.
And 9 times out of 10, when you walk through the house, most of them already know what needs to be done. and they'll start to tell you what it is that they plan to do. So by you not necessarily pointing it out and giving them the opportunity, there's quite a bit of buy-in in that process as well, because you understand that they're already engaged. They've read what it is that you've sent to them, or they've been looking on HGTV and they understand some of the things that need to be done in order for them to be as successful as possible in selling their house.
And one other thing that I wanted to share with y'all, because a lot of times what we do is we do what we call the two-step process. We will deliver a pre-listing package, then we will go and do a walkthrough, and it's called a 15-minute walkthrough. Because it's hard. We don't have a lot of track homes. We do. We have more than we used to. But if you know, I mean, we just did a listing appointment in Keystone. All those houses are very similar, right? But guess what? This one had a new outdoor kitchen and a deck on the back overlooking the lake. We didn't know that till we walked in. We couldn't price that house adequately at that first appointment. There's no way. So we set the stage with them, then we do a two-step process, and we'll come back next week and give you a value. So we didn't even do the full presentation on that first visit. We went back the next week and did the presentation and assessed the value. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you have to do that.
And with walkthroughs, I know I've gotten the question a few times whenever you're newer. And I remember whenever I first started, what are you really looking for? Like, how do I even know how to look at a house the right way? Tour is so important. And I'm not sure for those of you who are on the North Shore, for those of you who are in the West Bank, that market center, I'm sure No More must have some sort of tour that they put together, if not the office alone. I know for us in Baton Rouge, we have a citywide tour on Wednesdays. You can subscribe to the email. If you just go to NOLA's website and contact somebody at their office, they'll send it to you. Whenever you do get a listing, it's an opportunity for you to showcase that listing to agents in the area whenever that area comes available on tour. So it helps you not only learn your areas to where it's, in Baton Rouge, what's area 53? I have no clue what that is. So it helps you learn your areas. And then it also helps you learn what agent, who's who in this community, right? Because we call them co-op agents, but you don't want to have an adversarial relationship with the other agents in your marketplace. If you're going to stay in this business for any amount of time, what goes around comes around, and we want to work together. Whenever you're on opposite ends of the table, it's very hard to come to terms. You're the mediator, and it's your job to take the emotion out of it and find a common ground to where you can meet. All parties can agree on it. So when you're able to meet these other agents, yesterday there was an agent that we just adore. He's not even in our office, that I was going to show his listing. I was like, this is going to be so much fun. I get to show Tim's listing today because we love him. It would be it would be fun to work with him. I know Tim. So get to know the agents, and that's what tour does too. The other thing is whenever you're walking through a house, you can get to see what trends are for certain neighborhoods. You can get to see, does it smell funky when you walk into it? Is there, dogs barking outside? How are the baseboards or the window sills where you've got dog marks on?
Or birds.
What?
Or birds.
Or birds. Yo, I had one, I think Jurassic Park was going on in the background. So anyway, that tour. So when you go on tour, you're going to learn so much. It used to be with Jeffrey and Carol, I literally was their little girl. I needed a car seat because I just sat in the back seat. And it was field trip. And I just went, and I'd try to get my purse out, and they would halfway be through the house. I'm like, that's how you learn. Go ahead.
But she did learn, I must say. And it was her desire. It was Steph's desire. It was always going to be fun going with KK when KK went to show a house. She didn't want to go with me. She wanted to go with KK.
No, because Jeffrey's in and out of the house. I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know where I am right now.
I'm the listing agent for sure. But,
he is. Do not let him get hold of the fire.
But KK would go through houses. She'd tell stories. And
That's
Stephanie loved that aspect of showing and working with buyers because it's stories. It's wow, can you imagine what it would be like on Christmas morning coming into this living room? Or what about having barbecues out here on this back patio in this wonderful yard? It's those types of relational things. But when you go on tour, you are seeing the houses through the eye of a buyer. And so what it helps you do is it helps you become sensitive to the things that you need to encourage sellers on whenever you go to take a listing. Because what we're always going for is the showing experience. Because everything today is about experiences. Are you happy? Are you sad? Was it a 10? Was it a 5? all of the things on Facebook, did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Why didn't you enjoy it? So everything's about the experience. So that's what we want to do. That's why we're looking at prepping a home. And we know that a home is going to undergo an inspection at some point, and we know what issues can be avoided on the front side. So that's the reason that Steph's talking all about that experience that you have when you go through the house and the consultation. I noticed that somebody said in the questions just a few minutes ago, you just don't quite know what to say or how to say it. I get that. But if you go with other agents on tour, you'll begin to understand what it is in your own mind and in your own heart that needs to be encouraged. And having forums like this and involving yourself in continuing education, if you come away with one script from today, I hope it's more than that, but if you come away with one script or one concept from today's learning, then that's going to help propel you down the road even further. And then 5 years from now, 3 years from now, you'll say, wow, I remember when I was doing that. And then you'll pay it forward and help somebody else.
So in your new agent toolkit, you do have a home walkthrough survey. And so this is something that's a great way for you to start off. So when you do go on tour, take that with you, and that'll help you get to understand the different parts of a house. And if you have a question, what type of floors are these? Are these pre-engineered? Are they laminate? Are they dirty top pine? What kind of floors are these? Ask the listing agent. Go ahead, Carol.
Well, ask them and ask your seller, because Julie was asking that as well.
Right.
I mean, that's part of what goes on in your interview when you're doing your listing presentation with them. How old is the roof?
Mm-hmm.
Is that architectural shingles? Oh, you had it replaced after Gustav. Oh, okay, so it's about 10 years, 12 years old. That type of thing. So you just go through that type of stuff and then say, oh, you put down this new floor, and then they'll elaborate.
They love to talk about, because their house is their castle.
That's right. That's right.
They're going to tell you everything.
The beauty of going on tour is you need to know your inventory.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell the story about you go into Home Depot.
You're so good.
You go into Home Depot and here's my story.
Uh-huh.
Go into Home Depot and you need a 3-inch screw. What do they do? Oh, yes, ma'am. That's on aisle 12B. Right? Do they know their inventory?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah. Do you, as a professional? You need to.
Yes.
So keep in mind, if any of you are the logistical checklist type of people, and it's again, I've got so much information. Go on tour. Okay, that's a big thing. Go back to the basics. I still do the basics. I'll double check and hold myself accountable to, when you get so much going on, to just your basics that you learned in Spark. It's your daily 10-4. That's all you got to remember. 10 houses a week, right? If you tour 10 houses a week, and how in the world do I do that for the dual career people? How in the world do I do that? Guess what? Get a stack of cards, go to open houses on Sundays.
That's what I was going to say. Open house, easiest way.
Go to open houses and go on agent tour. There's your 10. You're done.
Somebody else has done all the work for you already.
That's right. That's right. So, okay. So let's move on past the walkthrough part. Whenever you walk through the house, you're going to sit down with your seller, and that's whenever you open your presentation. And like Carol said, it's against our nature, right? Because it's like, do I look like a robot? How do I do? It's to keep you on task. And if you don't know it, because you're like, I'm nervous, I might forget my script, what I'm supposed to say. They don't care if you're reading it verbatim. And you can joke around with them in the very beginning and just say, I have a tendency to kind of go all over the place. I want to make sure that we stay on track. And so I've got my presentation right here. And if at any point you have any questions, then stop me and we could go over it.
I mean, we used to say that where Mr. Seller, hope you don't mind, but we're going to go through this presentation because this is very important. And we don't want to forget something. We want to make sure that we cover everything. And it's interesting because how best do people learn? Visual and audible. So you combine those two, and it's okay to read those lines. We read them, huh, Jeffrey?
Yep. Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
And look, that's the blessing of the presentation. You don't have to memorize it. It's right there in front of you. Over time, you will. Over time, you'll get to the point to where you could stand at the trunk of somebody's car and give
we've done it.
give the presentation, because we've done it. I mean, these situations just call for that sometimes. But what's going to end up happening is you're going to want to educate them, and that's what you're there for. Mr. Ms. Seller, I want you to come away from here today with an understanding and an education about real estate that you've never had before. So that when we set the value, or when the value is set on your home, that you understand everything about the details of the market that go into considering the value. It's not us that determine the value, it's the market. We don't determine the value. What we do is we evaluate the information, we interpret that information, we consult with you on that information, and then, of course, we go into negotiations down the road and consummation of the sale. That's your 5 points that of value that you bring to them. Go ahead, Steph.
So whenever you are meeting with your seller, you have your presentation. And in your presentation, I love that Jeffrey and Carol take this approach to it, right? You're a real estate agent. You're an independent contractor. You get to choose who you work with and who you don't see is going to be a pretty good fit, right? That's the best part about this job. Not every listing appointment that you go on, not every buyer consultation that you go on, do you feel like you're going to work well with that person? And if not, it's okay to say no. And if they don't get the warm and fuzzies, then guess what? Quite all right. This is a partnership that you're going into with this seller. You're in partnership with them. You want to work together to accomplish one goal. This is not they're hiring you and you got to go get it done. They've got to do their part too. So it's a partnership that you go in together to accomplish one goal. And there are other details that go into arriving at price and the reason behind price, all of that. Don't worry about that right now. Worry about your CMA. Go to your board, take a CMA class, practice. There's a fantastic Facebook post that you can put out there that we learned in Bold, and I don't think they do it anymore. But post it on your page and say, with interest rates as low as they are, who would like to know the value of your house? Refinancing may be an option, or you may have enough equity to where you can move up. Let me run a market analysis for you. Let me tell you what your home value is worth. DM me for more information. It's not a sales pitch. You're going to get it gives you an opportunity to practice is what it does. So practice your CMAs. And then once you run through your listing presentation, you'll have more confidence in it. And a lot of people ask, my sellers wanting to know, what marketing am I going to do for them? Am I going to put it, am I going to do open houses every single Sunday and put ads in the paper? Your listing presentation literally has that. I refer everyone that I coached to that. Everybody had that question. Hey, I'm going on a listing appointment. What marketing does KW do? It's in your listing packet. It's already there. It's beautiful. It's a graphic. It's great. I will caution you though, if you are not going to do one of the things that it states in that listing presentation, take it out. Okay. So there is, we're pretty much done at this point. because you have your standard listing presentation. You know how to go from lead generating to get the appointment, to do the pre-listing, to drop off the pre-listing packet. You have your objections taken care of prior to the listing appointment. You get to the appointment, you do a quick walkthrough, and then you sit down and you go through the presentation itself. You shouldn't have very many objectives at that point in time because you've already tackled them in the very beginning. The only objection that you may have is whenever you're arriving at price. And one of the great things that Jeffrey and Carol do is they learned years ago, they don't set the price. They give a range. And then they show them the statistics for that. And that is another class. It's called Price It Right. So if you guys ever want to come to our office when they teach it, or if you ever want them to come to your office, they've been in Mandeville a gazillion and one times. They know everybody in that market.
We taught them both.
They've been to all the market centers in the region. They teach regionally. So they tell your team leader, we need a Price It Right class with Jeffrey and Carol. They'll come in and they'll teach it. And there is Jeffrey and Carol have coined it consumer behavior.
Yeah.
We don't price your house at $199.9 because you're not selling a car, you're selling a house. You're missing somebody over $100. Right? So there's a reason behind all of that kind of stuff. And that's, again, another class. Right now, you're brand spanking new. Don't get in the weeds with things. Learn how to perfect your CMA. You're not an appraiser. You're just getting a general idea. Go ahead, Carol.
And use what Stephanie said, because that was one of the biggest ahas that Jeffrey and I had years ago when we attended a pricing class, was the seller says, what do you think my house is worth? I'm not going to tell you what I think the house is worth. The market is. So you incorporate the market, and consumer behavior into your dialogues. It's not you. It's not you. And that takes the burden off of you. And by doing a listing presentation every time, do we get questions from our sellers all day long, Jeffrey?
No.
No, because they understand. They understand the process. They understand what we're going to do to follow up. They understand that they're not going to hear from us every day. And they understand how what they had to do up front to get it to the market, and we priced it right, and here we go. So go with the KW and pick out your template and put that on your agenda for next week. Edit it, proof it, get it ready, delete, eliminate stuff that doesn't apply to you, and then read it every day. And pretend to present it. Present it to your spouse, best friend, whatever.
Mm-hmm. The coolest thing is there's a YouTube video that they showed in bold, and it was hilarious. You could probably Google it. But it was the power of no. It is the funniest thing ever. You've got to get used to hearing the word no.
Yeah.
No isn't a bad thing. It's just not right now. So it's okay. They tell you no, I'm going to use somebody else. What's the saying, Carol? You want to be the first?
Oh, firstborn, second wife, third realtor.
So guess what? Get that third realtor. Let them go list with somebody who's going to do it for 1%. That's quite all right.
Yeah. We'll be here when they're ready.
Sell.
We'll be here when they get serious. Mm-hmm.
And let me
go ahead, Jeff.
Let me add something about the discounters for just a minute. Carol's been doing this since 2000. Did you get licensed, Carol? 2001?
2001. Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this since 1980. Since 1981. I've seen Help You Sell come and go. I've seen Discounts Are Us come and go. I've seen Sell Your House Cheap come and go. And I think that we'll continue to see discounters come into the market and go away. And let me just ease your thought process on this. Why do discounters come into the marketplace and then they disappear? It costs money to do business. It costs money to be effective. It costs money for education. It costs money to market. And while these companies are coming into the marketplace with these new concepts and these new gimmicks, the long and the short of it is business. That you have business income, you have business outgo, and you have a net profit. Those that don't make a net profit, guess what happens to them? They go away. And that's what's happened with the discounters. The FSBOs, I think this past year, Lawrence Yun said that total FSBO sales was 6%. And so did Gary Keller at Mega Camp. Those numbers have stayed pretty much consistent. Actually, the number of FSBOs has gone down that actually sell their houses themselves in the marketplace. And a portion of those are sold by realtors that bring buyers. So not to be concerned about the discounters that come into the marketplace, that advertise big on TV, that say that they're going to bring all these other gimmicks to the marketplace, because at the end of the day, remember that you are a professional. Real estate is always local, and real estate sales is based on relationships. And as long as you see your life as a relationship building opportunity, that's when you win, and not the discounters. And because the discounters that come in are not going to be able to provide what it is that you provide. So don't let your heart not grow weary and well-doing. Amen.
Lord, bring us to those who need us.
Lord, yep. Lead us to those who need us, Lord.
Well,
Because there's
thank
plenty
y'all.
of business out there.
Does anybody have any questions before we adjourn?
It was a privilege, y'all. This hour and 45 minutes goes by so fast.
I wish we were in person, and we would love to do a pricing strategy with y'all, or another listing class at some point as well. So
Absolutely. We love doing our Price It Right.
That's our favorite.
Get out there.
Thank
And
you guys so much. This has been wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you, Julie.
get out there and get a couple of no's, because then you'll be able to come back and say, you know what? I totally fumbled whenever I could not get the seller to understand the reason for doing a whole new fence in the backyard. And the other agent said, don't worry about it. And, or I totally fumbled whenever we were going over market. Now, come back with objections. Don't be afraid to fail, because failure is only opportunity disguised, right?
Right.
Fail, say, guess what? I'm ready now.
And let me tell you, the reason we started a listing presentation was because we failed.
Mhm.
We failed on a listing appointment because the other agent,
Hi, Carol.
you what?
I remember that we got our tails kicked by
Yes.
somebody because they gave their office's production as a production number.
And that's why they hired him. So if you're a new agent, that's a plus for you as well, to quote, as Stephanie said, the market center share and where you are with your own market center. But that's why we did it. We failed. And how many times do we fail now, Jeffrey?
We take 99% of the listing consultations that we go on.
Yep. Yep.
And the only reason that we don't take that other 1% typically is because the person that we go up against is their mother's, brother's, aunt's, cousin's, uncle's friend.
or we don't jihad.
Or we
Remember
don't
that one,
jihad
Stephanie?
with them.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
And
right.
we can tell that they're not going to listen to us. And so if they're not going to listen to us, there's no sense in us being there.
I will tell you, so with listings, you have basic, very basic, time and time again, you can always bank on it. Everybody wants to know the elephant in the room. How much you charge? Jeffrey and Carol, it is in the listing presentation. And they also learned, so remember, the market typically is, 5%, 6%. You never know where you're going to go with that. Jeffrey and Carol, they were like, well, if somebody asked, then we might do 5. And then what happened?
Somebody else comes in and does 4.
And then you might put in, well, maybe if they buy, maybe I'm going to list their house at 5 because they're also going to buy from us. And so we'll get both sides. So let's do that. Your friends, guess what? A lot of your business is coming from your database. That's the majority of it.
Right.
And friends talk. So how would you feel if Julie talked to Brandy and said, Jeffrey and Carol's got your house listed too? I know. Look, 6%, I thought that was crazy in the beginning, but I see all of the work that they're doing. Oh, they're doing 6, I'm doing 5. So
Mhm.
guess what?
That
They
math.
did the math. They did the math because of a situation like that. And now it's a system. It is 6%. And as Gene Rivers says, when they ask, how much do you charge? It's a question. You answer 6%. It's not question, answer, explain. I
And
charge
it's
6%.
line in our presentation. It's up there on the screen.
And we always state that we charge 3% for our services, and we encourage you to offer 3% to the buyer's agent. If they don't want to offer the 3% to the buyer's agent, then that's on them. You can take it at 5.5. But Carol and I don't encourage them to do that because typically agents look at that thing.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to help sell your neighbor's house or do you want to sell your house?
Woo, you go, girl.
That's a good one of ours that we love. Yeah.
Right.
We're all about one-liners. We need to do a book.
I'm so
Yeah, we
sorry
do a
because
book
the
and
neighbors
we need
got
to
the
do a
neighbors
class
offered
on
3.
one-liners.
That's right. So that's always a big question that everybody asks. It's the elephant in the room. How do you address the commission objection? Don't let it become an objection. Put it on your presentation, and then you're gonna be moving so fast through that presentation. If they stop you and say, "Well, wait, it's 6%,"
Yep. And always take the opportunity to say what we do, all of our marketing, all of our negotiating, that gives you an opportunity to reiterate what your value proposition is. We charge 3% for the evaluation, the consultation, or the interpretation, the consultation, the negotiation, and then the consummation of the sale. Always be closing, always be sharing what that value proposition is. Remember, it's evaluation, interpretation, consultation, negotiation, consummation.
And when in our presentation do we do that? Before we talk about the market.
Right.
We're not going to tell them, go through all of our research and tell them what their house is worth and what they need to do and give them all that information. And then they come back and say, oh, well, we're not going to hire you because my neighbor will do it for 4%.
and you have walked away from that. You've shut the computer and said, "Okay, I don't think we need to go any further at this point."
Yeah, we have.
And you can't be afraid to do that. It's a tough thing to do.
Hard.
But when you start selling your value short, then all of a sudden they start to be the ones that are in control. And if you don't see yourself as having value and you don't stand up for that value, then all of a sudden you start selling yourself short. And what you do is you undermine your own self-confidence because you allowed them to convince you that you weren't worth what it is that you are worth.
And then
Does that make-
ultimately you undermine the whole industry.
And it does. It ends up undermining the entire industry and taking us from a profession to strictly a service.
And Jeffrey asked a physician once who wanted us to cut, remember? And you said, well, sir, would you charge me less for surgery than the next person?
And you know what his answer to that was?
Well, no.
Of course, he got mad and we didn't get the listing.
And we didn't get the listing, but that's okay because guess what? It was never going to be a good experience.
No, and it's still on the market to this day, Carol.
Isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
My gosh.
Sold it.
There you go. See? We'll be the third realtor.
That's right. All right, guys. Well, this was a lot of fun. Thank y'all for asking us to share with you. And again, if you want us to come into your market center and teach that class, I put Jeffrey, Carol, and my information in the chat box. So get with your coach, get with your TL, whoever it is, agent services, or either shoot us a quick text, email, and we'll respond back to you. We're all in it together. We've got a great region. I love being able to collaborate, use each other as referral bases. If you have people, our world is so small. So good luck. I'm excited for you guys. Don't give up, push forward, and you'll be great at it.
Keep at it. Keep at it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. God
Y'all
bless.
later.
Bye.
Thanks so